Hello. So somebody posted in this thread, could I go live to discuss? So, and now my dog's freaking out. I probably have about a free hour right now. Oh, did that not make it? Okay, there it is, clickable. I don't know much on this. I haven't paid any attention to this. I'm not the one that found this on Reddit or posted it. That was Michael Ryan who shared it with y'all today. So I'll read through this Reddit post and we can discuss from there. I just posted the link to Reddit, so that's where this all originates from. And so the thread is titled Confirmed. Colborn's call time is at 9:22 p.m. on November 3rd. Okay. So 11/3 AC call. The dispatch runs the plate at that time too. All right. Dispatch plate. And then also on November 4th. Okay. Let me pull up this screenshot. All right. So we'll read this screenshot timeline. It says confirmed. Colborn's call time is at 9:22 p.m. on November 3rd, 2005. MTSO dispatch runs Teresa's license plates on November 3rd at 9:22 p.m. and 9:23 p.m. and November 4th at 3:31 a.m. and 7:03 a.m. This timeline is to establish the involvement MTSO and Calumet had in the investigation prior to Colborn's call that he made while sitting outside the Zipperer property, plus the subsequent license plate inquiry in the system a minute later. And the license plate inquiries that were ran through dispatch overnight on November 3rd into November 4th, 3:30 a.m. and 7:03 a.m. that weren't heard about until today. No, that's not true. These have been talked about forever. Investigators were not on overnight duty, so the question remains, why were the license plates ran through the dispatch system when there was no investigating going on during that time frame? So this section is titled Timeline and Time Stamps of Relevant Events. November 3rd, 2005. At 6:37 p.m., Manitowoc County receives call from Calumet investigator Mark Wiegert. Wiegert is at Teresa's house looking at the phone bill Teresa's friends printed. And we'll see if it's in there. Instead of me inputting my stuff, we'll see what's covered in here. And the call is forwarded to Andy Colborn. Wiegert asks Andy to check out the Avery residence. Manitowoc opens up an incident about Wiegert's call. 6:39 p.m. Manitowoc runs Stephen Avery's information in their system. This is most likely a request from Andy Colborn as to get the address of Avery so he can drive there after the request from Wiegert to check out the residence. Why does he need the address? Okay, good. 6:51. Manitowoc Dispatch sends out an attempt to locate that broadcasts to all units with Teresa's information, date of birth, car information, and license plate. This information is disseminated to all units under the county organizational umbrella. 7:13 p.m. While driving to Avery's, Colborn calls dispatch to inquire about Carmen Bootwell, found dead at 8 a.m. on November 3rd, possibly being Teresa Hallback. In the background, first 5 to 10 seconds of audio, you can hear a different dispatcher take part of license plate information of 444. According to the FOIA system logs, the 444 information was recorded by dispatcher Lynn at 7:13 p.m., therefore placing the Colborn call at that time. Colborn in turn relays the information about Carmen Bootwell to Link. Will you not click on this for me? Hold on. I'm clicking on this YouTube.
Sharon.
Yeah.
I hear that the city just discovered a little while ago a 25-year-old dead girl in an apartment on the south side of town.
Yeah. They had discovered her early this morning at 8 this morning.
By any chance, is it Teresa M. Hallbeck? She's 25 years old. That's what I'm wondering. Do we have an ID on her?
Yeah. Carrie knows the name. Can you hold on?
Sure.
Andy?
Yeah.
It's Carmen Boatwell.
Okay.
Andy?
Definitely not our missing girl from Calumet County.
No.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Sounds good.
Okay, bye. Yeah, talk Sheriff's Department, Karen speaking.
Karen, I need you to run a criminal history for me. I'll give you the guy's name, middle initial, date of birth, the whole thing.
Go ahead.
Ready?
Yep.
Last name is Zipper, Zebra Ida, double P Paul, E Edward R Robert, E Edward R Robert.
Okay.
George, common spelling, B boy. He's a male white. 0516 of 40, 516 of 40. And then give me a 21 if he has a criminal history. Just let me know on the radio if he has a criminal history, okay?
Okay.
If there's no criminal history, then let me know.
That's works. You can just wait 1 second. I can let you know right away.
Sounds good. He's the suspect right there. Retail theft. That's an 83, though.
He does have one.
Now, DDC, family trouble. He does have a criminal history?
Yes, I don't know what it is, though. I
Okay.
would have to run another screen. WI.
He said she was taking pictures of his son's car. I don't know son's first name, though. Got that address down, though. Okay.
Central 107. All right, so you were saying 10-18-92?
Talked to you a while ago. I thought you were calling me now. This is guys. What's the page?
That was. It's disorderly conduct, and that's it.
Just a DC on his criminal history?
Yep.
Yep, we saw that on the in-house. That was DVO related, it looked like, huh?
2002.
02?
Doesn't tell me where it was related.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. Bye.
I'm going to end this now and go back to reading this because I don't think the rest of it is anything that we need to hear to continue on with this post. Where was I? This one. While driving to Avery's, Colborn calls dispatch. That's the one I already read. Yes. All right. Colborn arrives at Avery's and speaks to Stephen at 7:20 p.m. 7:26, Colborn leaves Avery, tells dispatch to open an incident about the visit. 7:28, Calumet County dispatcher Steve runs an inquiry on Manitowoc County resident George Zipper, presumably at the request of Uyghur. Shown in the link is ORI number, blah, blah, which is Calumet County. Not shown in the link is the operator name, which is Steve. 7:28, another 7:28. Based on information Colborn gathered earlier about Carmen Bootwell, Calumet Wiegert is involved in audio that has Lenk relaying the Carmen Bootwell information to Calumet. Here's the file name, blah, blah, blah. 729, at the request of Mark Wiegert, Calumet Detective John Dietering tells his dispatch he is on his way to Manitowoc Sheriff Department. Calumet Dispatch records it in their log. 736, Manitowoc Detective Dennis Jacobs calls dispatch to request information on Teresa Hallbeck, and Hallbeck spelled wrong. They spelled it Halbech. From 7:30 to 7:55, according to his testimony, Colborn drives by Zipper residence, testifies that the lights are off, and heads back to the station. The thing to know about Zipper, too, George Zipper, is law enforcement didn't want to talk to him. They were all like scared of him because he's an angry drunk. 8 p.m. Calumet Dietering radios into his dispatch that he has arrived at Manitowoc. His report states that Colborn, Remacher, Jacobs, and Lenk were all at Manitowoc. Calumet Dispatch enters Dietering arriving at Manitowoc. 8:20, Colborn enters in a quick cursory no report summary report for incident blah blah, which was his visit to Avery's earlier in the evening. 8:25, Colborn calls dispatch and asks them to run the Zipper criminal history through the dispatch system. This request is different from the 7:28 p.m. Calumet County request on Zipper, and this is most likely the reason this particular request does not show up on the FOIA system log document. Colborn mentions that information was gathered from the in-house unit, the unit they were looking at while on the phone with the dispatch downstairs. Colborn also mentions to whoever is next to him to, quote, jot down an address, unquote. This request does not show up on the FOIA system logs. 8:30. Incident blah blah is closed in the dispatch system. Note the gap in time from 11:03 until 11:05. Around this time, this incident number and few others were closed out. This could be due to regular incident number maintenance by dispatchers. 8:30 to 8:45. Colborn testifies that he leaves the department and helps in making contact with Zipper by driving to the residence. He leaves Manitowoc and drives by himself before Remacher or Dietering. Stop! Hey! It is unknown what route Colborn takes to Zipper residence or if he visited the address that was jotted down earlier. 9:15. Remacher tells Andy that he and Dietering are en route to Zipper. Andy responds affirmative and mentions he is waiting at the church across from the Zipper residence. And I actually have in the picture somewhere, because I've gone to the Zippers before, where I was parked at the church and took the picture from there. So if you want to see what that view's like, it's somewhere, or maybe I'll try and remember and post it. Remacher asks Andy if he has any idea who that plate comes back to, and Andy responds negative. In the background, you can hear Dietering asking, do you want to let Stevie know? 9:18. Here is Calumet Wiegert calling Stevie at dispatch to let him know Dietering is going to the Zipper residence with Manitowoc. Here's the file name of the audio clip establishing the 9:18 p.m. timestamp. 9:22. Colborn calls Lynn at dispatch to run Sam William Henry 582. Lynn enters the request into the dispatch system. Lynn asks Andy if he speaks Spanish. The reason being is because Manitowoc was running a slew of Spanish requests in their system at the same exact time as when Colborn called in the plates. 9:23. Teresa's license plate is ran in the system again by an ID that is not Lynn. This request could be one of two things: another screen, actual physical computer that Lynn ran on another terminal next to her, or another request of SWH582 immediately after the 9:22 p.m. request that there is no audio of. 9:40 p.m. Dietering and Remacher arrive at Zipper and meet with Andy. You'll note that the Zipper household is an issue today because of a missing voicemail that was recorded by Teresa on the Zipper's machine, recorded by Manitowoc Jacobs, but never retained in evidence. Now we go into November 4th, 3:31 a.m. Manitowoc dispatcher Ann runs Teresa's license plate in the system. The code is blah blah, which from cross research looks like another license plate inquiry screen. The actual reason for who the request came from is unknown, as the investigative team went home for the evening the night prior. Side note, the Sikiki letter mentions the smelter being used at 3 a.m. on Friday morning, which coincidentally is 11/4 and a half hour before the license plates were ran in the dispatch system. 7:03 a.m. Manitowoc dispatcher Lori runs Teresa's license plates in the system. Note the plate is entered incorrectly. Note that Manitowoc wasn't contacted until after 8 a.m. by Calumet on this day. Wiegert requesting Lenk Remacher to visit Avery, diminishing the possibility of a Calumet phone call triggering this lookup. Again, the actual reason, request, or who it came from is unknown. No dispatch transmission was included by Manitowoc for November 4th. So that's all of that timeline. So the thing with all of this is, all right, now let me try to remember, because I'm so rusty at all of this. I, knew all this stuff in the case years ago and then have forgotten it. So it was, how I have a timeline. I should pull up that timeline that I typed up a long time ago. Documents. Open my documents. Avery timeline. Let me go through this timeline. But I'm waiting for this Word doc to open. Minimize this. Pull it over to this screen. All right. Oh, I don't need to start there because my timeline starts in 1980. I should post all this again so you guys could have it. I'll make a thread for it. But I typed this a long time ago. All right. All right. Let me start with... All right. We're just going to go into... I'll start with October of 2005. So... the first date I have in October is the 11th, and that's when, so on October 11th, Lenk was deposed, and he acknowledges the call Colborn got in 1995 about that they have the wrong person in the Penny Bernstein thing. Sandra Morris is also deposed this day. October 13th. Sheriff Kenneth Peterson is deposed and denies any knowledge of anything that would have cleared Stephen Avery. Sergeant Colborn is deposed and claims he doesn't recall speaking to anyone about Stephen Avery's case. Judy Dvorak is also deposed and admits she suggested Stephen looked like the person Penny Bernstein was describing. 10/26. Chief Deputy of Manitowoc County, Eugene Couche, is it Couche or Couche? I don't know how you... douche, that's what we'll call him, is deposed about his sketch looking almost exactly like Stephen Avery's mugshot from 1985. He denies having access to the mugshot. He framed his sketch and has been proudly displaying it for almost 20 years. He also questions if Stephen Avery is really innocent and the validity of the DNA that freed him. 10:31. Stephen Avery calls Auto Trader at 8:12 a.m. to request that Teresa Hallback come photograph a minivan he was selling. He leaves the name B. Yanda, which was for his sister Barbara Yanda, as it was her car. Teresa Hallback calls Barb Yanda at 11:43 a.m., saying she will be there sometime after 2 p.m. Teresa Hallback takes pictures of a car for sale at the Schmitz residence around 1:30 p.m. Teresa is at the Zipper residence sometime between 2 and 2:30 p.m. Dawn Pliska from Auto Trader talks to Teresa at 2:27 p.m. and Teresa tells her she is on her way to the Avery brothers. Scott Taddock says he arrived home at 3:15 p.m. and then went hunting. He passed Bobby Dassey on the road, who was also going hunting. Brendan and Blaine Dassey got off the bus at 3:45 p.m. on October 31st. The bus driver testifies that she saw a woman taking pictures of a vehicle. Barb comes home and makes dinner for them at 5 p.m. Blaine leaves at 5:20 to 5:30, somewhere in there, with his friend Jason to go trick-or-treating. Barb leaves around 5:30 to go with Scott to Green Bay to visit his mom in the hospital. Blaine's boss calls at 5:45 p.m. Brendan used to work for him too. Stephen Avery calls Brendan shortly after that and asks him to come watch a bonfire. 15 minutes later, Stephen calls again and asks what is taking so long. Brendan was changing his pants and putting on a sweatshirt because it's chilly. Brendan gets there around 7-ish. They drive around in Dolores' golf cart picking up debris. When they're done, Stephen asks if he wants to help clean the mess in the garage. Scott Taddock said he saw a fire at somewhere between 7:30 and 7:45 p.m. After about a half hour, Stephen and Brendan go out to the fire and Stephen gets a call on his cell from Barb. She wanted to know if Brendan was there. She reminds Stephen to tell Brendan he needs to be home before 10 and make sure he has a sweatshirt on. They watch the fire and then at 9:30 or somewhere between 9:30 and 9:45, Brendan goes home. Stephen received 2 calls from Jody, one at 5:36 p.m. and the other at 8:47 p.m. On 11/3, Teresa's boss, Tom Pierce, called Teresa Hallback's mother, Karen, around 1 p.m. and told her that Teresa didn't show up for work Tuesday or Wednesday. He was worried because her voicemail was full, and that was unusual for Teresa because that was her business phone also. Karen called Mike and Tim Hallback to ask if they heard from Teresa. She also called Auto Trader to ask when was the last time they heard from Teresa and didn't get an answer. So then she called Calumet County Sheriff's Department. Mike Hallback got into Teresa's cell phone records and knew her last call was on Monday, 10/31. They used her cell phone records to retrace Teresa's steps. They put out posters on 11/3 and 11/4. Ryan Hilgas, Teresa's ex-boyfriend, planned to get a group together at Teresa's house on 11/5 to do an organized search in Manitowoc where Teresa was last seen. Teresa reported missing at 5 p.m. on 11/3. And then on 11/5, the RAV4 was found at 10:30 a.m. by Pam Sturm, Karen Hallback's husband's first cousin. It was about 350 feet from a car crusher at the Avery Salvage Yard that was 40 acres and had around 40,000 vehicles. Investigators became actively involved in the search at 2 p.m. on 11/5. Detective Jacobs asks if Stephen Avery is in custody. So, all right, so that's everything in that timeline from in this little thing here. Let me scroll through the Reddit comments to see. Well, here, let me go through your comments. Colborn called, when he called in the plates, it was from his personal cell. And that's also in that call is when you hear somebody in the background say what you know, it's on YouTube. You can listen to it, where the car's here, something like that. Julie says, I'm confused. Didn't Colborn call during the day on the 3rd requesting the plate number for RAV, but now they're saying it was 9 something at night? Let me pull up this screenshot again of this timeline. So it says, yeah, this says his call time was 9:22 on November 3rd. So, and they run her plates at 9:22 and 9:23. And now remember, her car is not found until the 5th. So they're calling in these plates on the 3rd, and the car is found on the 5th, right? Let me go through. Hi, Carol Ann. Hi, everyone. Pencil douche, yeah. Well, Michael Ryan's here. Michael, you speak on it since you posted all this and probably know far more about it. Carol Ann, hopefully that's been answered. I'm reading this document that's in this Reddit thread. Yeah, Charlene, it'll stay up. I don't delete any of these lives. It was only one that I did, and that was to torment somebody. Okay, so Michael Ryan, if you're still on here, please comment on all this stuff and fill people in. I am going to... Can I just share this in Gossip? Let me see. Files. What's all in here? I don't even know what's all in these files. I haven't looked in here. Upload file. Sorry. Stupid thing's going low or slow. Documents. Where's my timeline? All right. So I should have just uploaded this Word doc of this timeline now. And like I said, I typed this up a long time ago. So I don't even know for sure what's all in it. So just so you all know. Michael Ryan, I just think it's great we have the FOIA allowing us to uncover Andy the Rat Colborn. It's shared in Gossip already. Yeah, Michael Ryan shared it on Stephen Avery Project. He shared it everywhere. Carol Ann says, I believe Colborn got the recent info that has been shared on Twitter and Reddit. Debbie said, sorry to hear the bad news for Melissa. Yeah, it's so yeah, Melissa, the state requested another continuance and got it. So now her next hearing date is scheduled for August 15th. But the coroner that lost his job over the whole thing, since he was the one that changed the death certificate from murder to undetermined, right? Undetermined, that's what he put it to. I can't remember. Sorry, brain not functioning. He has a hearing this Thursday. Paul called me today and asked if I would pick him up and take him into Chicago for the hearing for Dr. Rudd. So, and I still haven't even looked at my schedule to see if I can go to that yet. So maybe there'll be some good news for Dr. Rudd and he can run for coroner again. Jason says, why would Colborn call in those plates if he wasn't looking at them? Exactly. You know, so why is he calling in the plates from his personal cell 2 days before the car is found. You know, and then it's found by a Hallbach relative who claims she used to be a private detective, but didn't understand that you can't touch the vehicle and didn't know where to find a VIN. I don't know how she was a private detective and not know those things. And that she was able to find a car, literal needle in a haystack, 40,000 cars or whatever it was, whatever the number was, that she was able to find it that fast. And was the only one given a direct line to the sheriff and a camera. Michael says there are a group of folks accessing info via FOIA. For those that don't know what a FOIA is, that's the Freedom of Information Act. So all this stuff is, you know, you just have to ask for it, and they're supposed to give it to you. Carol Ann could talk to you more about FOIAs because she does it on the regular. I just know what they are. I have never filed for a FOIA, so I don't know what's all involved in requesting something and how long it takes you to get it. Carol says he's in his police car. There's no need to use a personal phone. Yeah, right? Julie says nothing on the 4th, as if it's a blackout day for law enforcement. Lots of planning must have been going on that day. Heather said she was so over-rehearsed for her testimony. Yeah, Pam Sturm of God was, I always found her testimony really weird. Really phony. So, yeah, this again just goes to more of the why is Colborn calling in the plate if he's not looking at it? Because if you're just looking for this missing person, you would first just be looking for the car, right? You're not going to remember the plate or whatever, so you're going to look for the car. And then if you find the car, then you would be, hey, what's the plate? Right? Isn't that common sense on how that would work? You know, so Reddit, as we tell you guys all the time, is Reddit's got good stuff and bad stuff. There's a good Reddit, there's a bad Reddit. I don't know. I haven't been to Reddit for a while, until today. Carol Ann says, I've only done 2. One to Green Bay that came back quickly and cost me nothing. I sent one to Manitowoc on June 20 with no response. Have sent a follow-up email in the last couple of hours. Apparently, it's usually a couple of weeks turnaround from Manitowoc. Yeah. So that's the latest that people are discussing in the case, is this thing that Reddit posted today about Colborn's call and Teresa's vehicle. You know, as for anything else in Stephen's case, we are still just waiting for Judge Flowers to rule on, you know, if Stephen can get a new hearing, trial, whatever, due to the state covering up that they gave bones that they claim aren't even Teresa's to the Hallbach family in 2011. Michael says, TikTok Manitowoc is good. Oh, the Reddit page, TikTok Manitowoc. Okay. Yeah, good luck with that lawsuit, Andy. I cannot believe the balls on that guy to try and sue Netflix and the documentarians after, you know, just you guys are literally so far getting away with murder. I don't think law enforcement committed the murder. I think they framed Stephen for it, seized the opportunity, but don't push it. Holy, you know, shut your mouth and just go away. Carol Ann says, not sure how info works there regarding vehicle plates, but the details should be noted by the officers receiving the details over the air. You would expect they would know the plates, make, model, and color. Trish says, taking their good old time. Kelly says, wouldn't it be nice if Judge Flowers gave answer for Stephen's birthday? Yeah, so Stephen's birthday is tomorrow, for those that don't know. Yeah, she's never, she would give, maybe she would on his birthday when her answer is going to be no. She doesn't want to do anything nice for Stephen, that's for sure. And there's no time limit on how long she can take. I believe sometimes this stuff is taken years before a judge has ruled. And that's just another thing with our criminal justice reform here in the States. You know, something has to change. They shouldn't be able to drag stuff out like that. It's cruel. Michael says, the color has always been questioned and discussed ad nauseum. Yeah, I'm not a conspiracy person on the color of her car. I've talked about that before. You know, she had an odd color paint that some people are going to think it looks blue and some people are going to think it looks green. And I have a car that does the same thing. My car is blue. And now remember when I got busted for trespassing at the deer camp, that the police report said my car is black. And my car is not, it is blue. You can look at my title. My car is blue, but in some lights it looks blue, in some light it looks black. So that's why I've never been one to go, there were two different vehicles. But also, you know, you can't put anything past Manitowoc at the levels they'll go to, right? Debbie, I don't know what you were asking there, saying seen Sandy G visited Stephen. Rachel says, can't Colborn at the very least get done for perjury now? I don't know. Heather, when do you honestly think, in your opinion, he will get out? I don't know that he ever will. I'm hopeful he will, but I just have no faith in our justice system. So I can't give you a timeline because, you know, I've been following this case since Making a Murderer Part 1 came out. And even with just that, in looking at what was there, to me, I felt there was enough to prove his innocence. There's way more now since Kathleen came on the case, and there he still sits. So I don't know. I'm hopeful, but Heather says, whatever happened with that trespassing charge? I paid the ticket because I found out that it was Carla and her dad Chuck called Josh Verdant and told him I was on the property. And so it was Josh Verdant who then filed the trespassing charge, which if I wanted to fight it, I suppose I could have, because there's nothing there that says no trespassing. But I was on his property. He filed it. So I paid the ticket. Christopher says, please tell us about your new buttons and how we can order. Thank you, Jax. I've got a post here in Gossip. I made some buttons that has the Stephen Avery Project logo that we made for him, that has a Firebird that looks like the car symbol Firebird. And, you know, a Firebird is something that rises from the ashes, but then also making it the car plays into Stephen as well. So I have those buttons, and so there is a thread in Gossip on how you can go to my PayPal and pay me for a button, and I'll send it out to you. April says, call log. Now we have absolute proof that he made the call hours later, and after you hear Remaker asking him if he has any idea who the plates come back to, he says negative. A few minutes later, uses his cell to call the plates in. Cell phone, radio to fellow officer, or computer in car to look it up, would confirm same info he was calling in to retrieve. Shake my head. Yeah. Mari says 6:39 p.m. 11/3. Manitowoc runs Stephen Avery's information in their system. This is most likely a request from Andy Colborn to get the address of Avery so he can drive there. Find it hard to believe that he did not know the address to salvage yard. This is a small town, and Stephen Avery, remember, has been in the spotlight for his wrongful conviction, and supposedly Colborn was there many times before. This just seems not right. That was something I was going to say when I was reading the stuff originally, was Colborn was friends with one of Stephen's brothers. I don't remember which one. So, and yeah, he was there. So, yeah, that doesn't make any sense that he would need the address. He knew where it was. Debbie says she just visited it for his birthday, thought she was off his visitors list. No, she wasn't off his list. She had told Stephen to take her off. Because since he took off her buddies, which is really weird because she told Stephen to take her buddies off. But since Stephen took her buddies off, and then her buddies were upset, and so her buddies wanted her to side with them over Stephen. And so they told her not to visit Stephen anymore if they couldn't visit Stephen. And so she told Stephen to take her off. But Stephen can't. There's these rules that you can't just remove people within a 6-month time frame. So like the buddies that he removed, now they're off for 6 months. He can add them back, but it has to go 6 months before he can put them back on. Same thing now that he added me, and so I have to be on for 6 months before he can take me off. So there's a chance after 6 months he would remove me and put her buddies back on, since it always needs to be a competition over you need to like us best. Stupid drama, junior high girls. Kimberly, I just got on here off topic. Was there a response to the filing yet? No. Carol Ann says he was buying parts for some old truck he owned. Colborn. Yeah. Michael says Earl and Colborn were chummy, I guess you could say. He bought parts there. Okay, yeah. So I assumed it was Chuck and not Earl, since Chuck is older and Earl's the youngest. So that's where we're at with that information. I mean, it's stuff we knew already and have known for years, but now you're seeing it officially by getting the reports from law enforcement or wherever, I mean, so what does it prove? What is it? I mean, we know all this. It's crazy that it doesn't just, the guy should be freed. There's so much out there that shows he's innocent. No, there's no deadline, Kimberly, for the response. So, but whenever stuff is filed, I'm usually contacted. I'm emailed and told that it has been filed. So, and then I can pay to get it, which is X amount per page, blah, blah, blah. So as soon as something gets filed, we'll get it and post it and go live with it. All right. So that's everything on that. Anybody else have anything else? Carol says, so we can assume the car was seized on November 3rd. Right. So, and from that timeline I read is that Karen Hallback called in Teresa at 5 p.m. Right? Hold on. Let me scroll back down in this Word doc. So Teresa's boss calls Karen Hallback at 1. And Karen Hallback calls the police at 5 on November 3rd. And then Colborn's call is at 9:30. So there's your timeline on that. Kimberly says, well, thank you for everything you do for Stephen. He's lucky to have someone like you by his side without expecting anything in return. Well, thank you, Kimberly. Jason says, yes, and tell Stephen to have a happy birthday from all his supporters. It's my birthday tomorrow, too. Well, happy birthday, Jason. Julie said she waited 4 hours. Wow. Well, that I'll defend because it says in here it was she was calling her sons and then they called Auto Trader, so they were looking for her in that time because remember she's not a child, she's an adult. And so you're not going to call the police right away. And isn't it with an adult too, that they don't even want you to file a missing persons report until they've been missing for 24 hours? Now, I realized the family had last talked to her on Halloween, and even though Teresa lived on her parents' property, it's a farm, and, so the house that Teresa was in, isn't right next to her parents. They didn't see each other or talk to each other every day. And Scott Blodorn had also said that Teresa would go to Green Bay and stay overnight there. So even for Scott Blodorn not to see her, there's times she didn't come home. She was living her life. So it was, Karen called her sons. They called Auto Trader. Mike Hallback got into Teresa's cell phone records to find where she was and retrace her steps. And they get posters made and start organizing a search to be on the 5th. And they report her missing at 5 p.m. Debbie says, it just makes me so angry that these officers will probably be dead before Stephen is freed. Lived a good life while Stephen and Brendan had no life. Well, a lot of them are like getting cancer and such. So maybe the guilt is literally eating them alive. Chris says, what is KZ's take on why it's taking so long to respond? I don't know if she's ever said her opinion on why it's taking so long. Pause. I'm doing a live right now. Yeah. Okay. Goodbye. That was quick, right? She has only said that she fully expects it to be denied. But this is the process that you have to wait for the lower court to officially deny it so she can then go over her head. Kimberly says, does Teresa's parents think anything differently since all this, or are they still thinking he's guilty? Teresa's family doesn't comment. They stay silent. So we don't know how they feel on anything. Sky, why are you sitting in the dark and where is window Jesus? I need answers. Well, I flipped around where my laptop was. So I'm now sitting by my window, and so Sky Jesus is right across from me right here. So he's not on camera, Sky. Maybe I'll have to, when I do lives, have to move him so you can see him. Gina says, is the timeline you are referencing on this website for others to see? So the timeline from Reddit is here. And then the other timeline is one that I talked about, is one that I typed up years ago. So it's not updated. It might have stuff missing. I have no idea what for sure is on it. I remember doing it, but not everything that's on there. So I just made its own thread on Gossip of a file. It's a file, so you can just click on the file and read that. Okay, and there's that. So let me see. This person says, this is on the Reddit post. Can you tell me what is specifically in the FOIA request that proves Colborn's call for the license plate was at 9:22 p.m.? This question has been speculated on for years, and I wasn't aware any evidence existed to confirm the time of call. If true, this completely debunks Colborn's explanation for the call as simply confirming the details of the missing person report. You would confirm those details upon receipt of the info and before you actually start investigating, not after you've already interviewed witnesses and been searching for hours. So I'm eager for your answer. Thank you. No answer. So I just read that for nothing. Gina says, okay, thanks. Carol says, there's a lot of good timelines in Reddit, Tic Tac Manitowoc. Look under community info. Thank you, Carol Ann. So this person says, the time of that call has been a question which has been asked for years, and now it's answered. Game over, Manitowoc. And it's something I've always wondered, too, of, has Kathleen ever tried to get Colborn's cell records? Because I'd like to know when he made that call, what tower it's pinging off of. Where was he? For sure. When he called in those plates. Because I believe he's looking at the RAV4. Because now he was at that gas station and somebody told him that they saw the RAV4 by the dam or whatever that was. Is it a dam? Is that what they called it? I don't even remember that either. But when I went on my field trip that I got the trespassing ticket for, we went there too. So you can see that you can, from that location, you can see Barb and Scott's house. They weren't living there at that time, the house they're in currently. So they bought a house right by where the RAV4 was dumped. And so then somebody found that RAV4 there. And then it went to, and which order was it? Because, it was at Cuss Road, right? All right, so Bobby catches her at Cuss Road. So that's where the car is originally. Then it's left at that dam. And then it ends up at the salvage yard. Michael says, all the records are available to Kathleen. Carol Ann says, there's no legit reason to run those plates that I can think of unless you're looking at the vehicle. There's also no legit reason to call them in on your personal phone when you're in a police car, right? Because also cell service is not great. It's not great there now. I don't know what it was like back in 2005, so it wouldn't have been any better back then. It would possibly have been worse, right? So why would you use a cell phone? You would use your radio that you have better reception, right? Chris said, did KZ ever get to look at the RAV4? No, I don't think she'll ever get that car. You know, and so what you have to ask is why? Why won't they give it to her? And why is that a thing that they have the option to not give it to Stephen's attorneys? He should have a right to all the evidence in his case. I don't get that. I don't know why that is. Michael says, there's also no reason to literally have 0 dispatch calls from 11-4. That's a set of ads for you. Yeah. Because, you know, now remember, they don't find her car until the 5th. The car is found at 10:30 a.m. by Pam Sturm. It was about 350 feet from a car crusher at the Avery salvage yard that was 40 acres and had around 40,000 vehicles. Investigators become actively involved in the search at 2 p.m. And the search party, I don't know when the search party started, but I remember that they said that Pam Sturm got there late. So the search parties had already been assigned their locations and gone by the time Pam and her daughter got there. And that then Pam is assigned the salvage yard. Why wouldn't that have been assigned already if you knew that was one of the last places she was at that day? Wouldn't that be a top priority to go look in that area? So why would it be saved for somebody who got there late? And then if she got there late, how late was she? Why was she late? Why was she the only one given all this special stuff? The search party couldn't have started if she's finding the car at 10:30, I don't know. Just stuff's not adding up to me. Michael says RAV4 is gone, in my opinion. Debbie says, yes, we need to demand answers. Michael says criminal. Oh, to Julie. Mary says Colborn also called the Spanish telephone line. Kelly says, it always comes down to the same conclusion for me. If state have nothing to hide, then give KZ all evidence. Tell her to test the shit out of it so they can end the speculations and be able to say, I told you so. Wouldn't that be the moment they would enjoy the most, proving KZ and Stephen supporters wrong? Bingo. Mary said, if you listen to the full call, he called the Spanish line. The dispatch lady teased him about learning Spanish. Michael says, it is still accessible, Julie, if she hasn't already asked for 11-4 via their backup data at Iron Mountain. I just shake my head at all of this. Anybody else? All right, so then I'm going to end this here because that was my boyfriend calling. He's on his way home from work and we'll be bringing dinner. So stay tuned. And everybody keep looking. Carol Ann, Michael, all y'all who are out there doing your own investigating. You know, you all are the ones that are finding things that could break this case. Oh, wait. Now, Christy, damn, I missed it all. And Michael, sighs of frustration abound. Yeah, Christy, sorry, I didn't even know I was going on. I got done with a conference call, and then I was online, and somebody asked if I could go live to discuss this, which I haven't even read all this stuff or been in Stephen Avery mode today. I've been working on all my other stuff. So I'm out of the loop. What's for supper? I don't even know. Since he called during a live, he just says, "You hungry?" And I said, "Yep." And he said, "Okay." So he'll just bring me something and I'll eat it. Okay, Debbie says, "Hang on a minute and look at this, please." All right, I'm hanging on. Should we sing "Hang On"? No, I'm not going to sing. We're waiting for you, Debbie. Not yet. Nope, that's Christy and Michael commenting. Nope. What are we waiting for, Debbie? Silence. Somebody talk to me. And I'm starving. I'm really tired. Teresa, in suspense. Debbie says, "I posted below Christy." I don't see it. It's not popping up on here for me. Thought I was going to Macarena. Dun, how does that go? Dun, dun. I don't remember. I'm old and I don't dance. Carol Ann says, "Salivating because someone mentioned food." What time is it by you, Carol? Well, no, it's late for us and earlier for you, right? I'm bad with the I'm bad in time zones in the states. I really can't even comprehend a whole nother continent. Jeopardy theme song. Midday. Okay. And is it winter there? And what is your winter like there? It doesn't really get that cold, right? Nope, nothing yet. You can try in private message it too, Debbie. You could private message it to me or Stephen Avery Project or to Christy. Okay, yeah, it's winter there, not very cold in Sydney. It's been really hot here. Earl says it's 7:12 in Arizona. Yeah, it's after 9 p.m. here in Chicagoland. South Carolina is 10. Christy would kill for winter right now. Oh. All right, what did Michael Ryan send us to now? Let me pull this over here. So he posted another Reddit. Why are swabs from blood stains on rear seat levels from RAV4 not among the swabbed ones taken at CL? Why are these blood stains mentioned in this crime lab by N. Stalky? By an individual who is actively bleeding. The contact transfer stains observed underneath both ends of the rear seat and located just below the seat levers on the RAV4 are consistent with a transfer of blood while an individual was lifting the split rear seats. The passive drop located on the threshold of the blood stain below seat levels of rear seats RAV4. Okay, so this says if it was Teresa's blood, that would mean she was alive and for some reason wanting to try to lift the rear seats as N. Stalkey suggests. It was 11/7 that SC recovered these swabs right around the time they discovered the burial site at Cuss Road. Law enforcement then realized that Teresa was most possibly either killed at Cuss Road the way KZ mentioned, flagged down by someone for a hustle shot, put in the back of her own RAV, and driven into the forest to be buried. Or she was just hit down, bleeding and alive, thrown in the back of the RAV4, and killed at the quieter burial site location. That last means she could well leave blood marks that actually show she still was alive leaving that mark. What if someone from law enforcement realized this, called SC, and told her, whatever you do, she cannot be alive and bleeding in the RAV, but like put her in the garage, she's influenced into obeying. So SC is Sherry Culhane, big hair. Remember also the cargo mat is missing. That also could show signs of her movement, showing she's alive when in there. The blood in the car itself is hard enough to fit into narrative. Why would Stephen drive from his house to the back of his garage into the RAV, in the RAV with her in the back? He would have carried her slim body towards the barrel and pit much easier. The safest option is she was killed in Stephen's house garage and burned in his burn pit barrel for narrative. Far away from people outside of the salvage yard, the less people can undermine the lies, the better. Just signs of a dead body in the back can be dealt with. Not alive, that would mean she would have been killed outside at the pit where the Dassies can hear her yelling or hear gunshots. Okay, got a little carried away in theorizing here, but the question remains, why weren't these rear seat level swabs taken by Sherry Culhane? All right, so also in here is the what do you want to call it? Where it's listing all the different blood things. So, oh, and Debbie now just messaged Stephen Avery Project. So it says the following item was submitted. Stain collected on swabs from side panel of rear cargo area, passenger side. Stain collected on swab from plastic panel across rear of cargo area. Stain collected on swabs from rear cargo door inside. From metal frame around rear door opening. And then there's hair and a specimen, a stain cut from the front driver's seat, or is that specimen A? Reddish brown crust recovered from floor between the center console and the driver's seat. Dashboard near the ignition switch. Stain cut from the front passenger seat. From a blank CD case on the front seat passenger side. Debris recovered from around the back panel in cargo area, driver's side, recovered from the metal door and rear door entrance area, passenger side. Flash card, a compact flash card, and the Wild Cherry Pepsi can that was in the console. Why would the blood on the lever mean that Teresa would be alive and doing something in the back? Why wouldn't it possibly be the killer / killers having her blood literally on their hands? And wasn't there something about male DNA or male fingerprints on the RAV4 that have never been accounted for? They just knew that they didn't match Brendan or Stephen and then did nothing with them. Okay. Carol Ann says, yep, I think it was likely Teresa who had been knocked out and thrown in the back. Not sure why she would try to undo the rear seat, though. I'm going to post something in the group that may indicate she was alive in the rear. Not my work, though. Julie says, if she were alive and bleeding, there would have been a lot more blood. Head wounds bleed profusely. I know from experience. Natasha says, I think whoever killed her was very angry at her, caught up to her, and she was leaving and bludgeoned her after they got her out of the car and threw her in the back. Julie said, unless she was on a tarp. So I'm confused and Debbie, I'll look up your message after this. I wanted to scroll to the bottom and didn't know if it was there, or if Christy or Michael, if you get the Stephen Avery Project message and can paste it in here while I do this, go ahead and do that too, whichever. Okay, because this case doesn't make sense. But yeah, it makes no sense on why, if it were Stephen, why would he ever have Teresa in her car when he was doing everything on his property, and didn't go anywhere? So that makes no sense for that. Then the other thing that I don't understand is, so in Kathleen's reenactment, and when people talk about that burial site that is at, so Cuss Road is a dead end, but at that dead end is the driveway, I guess you would call it, to Josh Verdant's deer cabin. And so in her recreation is Teresa's buried there. Why is she buried there? And then what happens to her from that? How does then stuff get to the salvage yard? I'm confused. All right. So Christy says 9:15 p.m. Remacher tells Andy that he and Dietering are en route to Zipperer. Andy responds affirmative and mentions he is waiting at the church across from the Zipperer residence. Remacher asks Andy if he has any idea who the plate comes back to, and Andy responds negative. 9:22. Andy Colborn calls Lynn at dispatch to run Sam William Henry 582. Can you guys see this? I saw that above it, but if you have something else underneath it, I don't see anything underneath there. Let me click on messages. Okay, so the thing that Debbie sent is what I just read, and that's from the Reddit post. And then she says, this shows Andy was at Zippers when he calls in the plates. And so then there's also that YouTube clip that's got, it's like 45 minutes of a whole bunch of different calls on the case in there. So how does it show that he was at Zippers when he called in the plates? Okay, and reply to each other. So Carol Ann said she's going to be possibly posting something in Gossip at some point to talk about the Teresa being in the back of the RAV4 and alive or not. So you'll have that to go over. So Stephen Avery Project says, why would there be no signs of foul play according to Mike Hallback interview on 11/7, and that it was good news? Everything about Mike Hallback is sketch. The guy creeps me out. I'm sorry. And I mean no disrespect to the Hallback family. it's not me speaking negative of Teresa to say Mike Halbach is just, I don't know, something is off there. So, all right, now I will officially go then. And if anything develops in Stephen's case, we'll post it. If I don't know if I'll hear from Stephen tomorrow. I believe he called me last year on his birthday. So if I hear from Stephen, I'll let you all know. And then with Melissa's case, I told you that the state got yet another extension, or whatever you want to call it. Paul told me he was told this was the state's third one, and that would be the last one, that they don't get any more continuances. So there should be some hearing on Melissa's case on August 15. In the Kent Pellegrini case, we're still waiting for the judge's decision on that hearing that we had, was it a month ago already? And then in Marnie Yang's case, things are still being put together to file for her. So could be filed at the end of this month. If not, hopefully August. But as soon as we get movement on any of those, I'll let you know here in Gossip. Heather, before I go, says, who does Stephen think did this? He thinks Bobby and Scott. Because that's where the evidence is. That's where the evidence leads to. That's what Stephen always says, is he's just following the evidence. It's not something that's against Bobby or Scott. It's just that's what the evidence shows. So, all right, now I'm officially out. Thank you all, and we will talk soon.